Hi, Jamila.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this installation of the Aurora Dialogues, a series of online and/or in-person conversations. Today's we're titling Finding Refuge, Inspiring Humanitarian Action, which we're holding in partnership, and it's chaired by our dear friend Sasha Chanoff from Refuge Point. More on that in just a moment. My name is Armina Fayan. I'm the Executive Director of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative. For those not familiar, Aurora funds grassroots humanitarian leaders around the world who risk themselves to help others, a true expression of humanitarian behavior. Today's World Refugee Day. It's a day that holds significant personal importance. I realized sometime in the last 2 years that I'm the first in my family in over 100 years to move voluntarily. Between the Armenian genocide 100 years ago, followed by Soviet rule coming in where my grandfather was in Bulgaria, followed that by the Lebanese Civil War that drove my father's generation, his family, to Canada. I realized that I have the immense privilege of being able to move freely. Growing up with that story alongside taught me in person the value of gratitude in action, which is a core principle of Aurora's. When you yourself receive support, it's a meaningful response to help others and to lend a helping hand as and when you're able. And those acts can multiply in kindness and, very importantly, folks whose lives are improved and potentially saved. At Aurora, over 20% of the humanitarian funding that we administer goes to addressing the needs of refugees. Since 2015, we've directed over $4 million to provide vital services to hundreds of thousands of people displaced by conflict, genocide, and other forms of violence. We have launched 68 projects in 12 countries and territories to provide those who are seeking refuge with healthcare, education, economic opportunities, critically the helping hand, the lifeline needed for them to take control themselves, which is what so many people want to do when they're seeking a new and better life. I'm so proud that today's discussion is hosted in partnership with Refuge Point, as I mentioned, and moderated by Sasha Chanoff, who's been a longtime Goodwill Ambassador of Aurora's. As Sasha writes in his book, From Crisis to Calling, Finding Your Moral Center in the Toughest Decisions, courage is the crucial quality, always magnified by the force of moral conviction. I am deeply moved to welcome three extraordinary women who embody this exact courage and who share their journeys of sacrifice, strength, and survival with us today. Their stories remind us of the resilience of the human spirit and the choices that we can all make to be humanitarians in our own right. They inspire us to continue our mission with renewed commitment and compassion, and for that, we are so grateful to have all of you here today. Thank you so much for your time, for your presence. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, as I'm sure our audience is too. So I will hand it over to you, Sasha. Thank you.
Thank you, Armin. It is such a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everybody, to the 2024 World Refugee Day. This is a day and a moment to honor refugees, to recognize their plight, to recognize their resilience, their contributions, and the necessity to step forward and assist them in building new lives and support them to lead in that respect. There are more people displaced than ever before. The UN Refugee Agency just came out with their Global Trends Report, which highlighted that at the end of 2023, about 117 million people were forcibly displaced, but that number continues to grow. One of the things that attracts me to Aurora and its commitment to the world is the fact that Aurora elevates the leadership of local people who've gone through war and conflict and dedicated their lives to helping others. If you look at all the Aurora Prize winners, these are people who have emerged from conflict in their own countries and dedicated themselves to those countries. Dr. Denis Mukwege was announced as the 2024 Aurora Prize recipient this year at a fantastic event in LA. And Armin, I just have to say, watching you lead the Aurora Prize and the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative as its new executive director, a role that you took on recently, has just been really thrilling and inspiring because your leadership is underpinned by what you just said, your own recognition of your family's history of persecution rooted in the Armenian genocide. And you bring that passion and intelligence and wisdom to bear as you lead the Aurora Prize and the events in LA in April this year, which culminated in recognizing Dr. Denis Mukwege, were as inspiring as anything I've ever been part of. In large part because of your leadership, because of the people who come around Aurora Prize, but essentially too, because you bring together local leadership. I met people from across the world who are dedicating themselves to others. And that is such a distinct dimension of what Aurora Prize and the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative does in the world. That is bringing together local leadership, elevating them, recognizing what they do in the world, and drawing attention and critically support to them. So thank you and congratulations for a really extraordinary event. When we talk about the people forcibly displaced today, I mentioned that there are now 117 million going toward 120 million and more who are forcibly displaced. Some of those people, or some of the top line trends in that, include people from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Ukraine, from Venezuela, and from Sudan. Those 5 countries make up many of the people who fled recently. Afghanistan, Syria, Venezuela, and Ukraine have all seen more than 6 million people who fled their homes to neighboring countries. One of the things that this growing amount of forced displacement calls to attention is the need for all of us to act. The need for everybody, not just those who are professional humanitarians, as I am, for example. I've dedicated my life to this and founded an organization which I lead called Refuge, which finds solutions for refugees in crisis situations. But this is not only left today to those who are professional humanitarians in a sense. It is up to all of us in the world to look up, to see what's happening around us, and to take action. And that's why I'm so thrilled about this panel today, because there are extraordinary people who are with us, whom we'll get to know in a moment, who have dedicated their lives to this, often are inspired by their own experiences and circumstances, which led them to leadership roles here. And so this is what Aurora is about, elevating people who have come out of experience and dedicated their lives to them. So I'm so thrilled to have the panelists here. Jamila Afghani from Afghanistan, who's a 2022 Aurora Prize recipient. Basma Alawi. Basma, it's so good to have you here and to be on a panel with you, who is the Deputy Executive Director of the Community Sponsorship Hub, and Sophie Beau, who runs and co-founded an organization called SOS Méditerranée. Each of you and your work is something that I've personally watched for a long time and have felt very inspired by. So I'd like just to welcome you. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'd like to start just by asking you to share a little about yourself and what brought you to the work that you do with our audience here today, which is streaming in from around the world. And Jamila, perhaps I will start with you and then move on from there. And welcome, and let us know also where you are right now.
Thank you very much, Sasha. And it's wonderful to see all of friends here after a long time. And thank you, Sasha, for celebrating Refugee Day. Sometimes we refugees, we are feeling that nobody recognizes us, nobody respect the situation that we are in. Forcefully, we are in. Nobody wants to leave their home, their house, their relatives, their dear ones. So, starting with the emotions.
Thank you for that, by the way. You always do so amazingly well.
I hope I'm not disturbing the rhythm of your program. So, I'm Jamila Afghani. I'm from Afghanistan, a women activist for more than 25 years. Currently, I'm based in Canada. The 6th time that I'm becoming refugee. Now I'm based in Canada for the past 1.5 years. And I have remained engaged with many organizations nationally and internationally. Currently, I'm working with Afghan Women Peace and Freedom Organization in the capacity of technical advisor. As right now, I'm not physically in Afghanistan and I'm only working virtually. And I'm also vice president of Women International League Peace and Freedom, Women International League for Peace and Freedom, which is one of the oldest women peace organization. So yeah, refugee from Afghanistan.
Thank you, Jamila. And you shared with us, or you said that you've been a refugee 6 times. You've shared that before. We should all pause just for a moment to recognize that unbelievable fact. Is there anything else, just maybe something personal that you'd like to share about with us that we don't know about you? Because you're famous in many ways. People read a lot about you. Is there something else you'd like to share with us briefly?
Yeah, I think there are many things to share, but only one question which always disturbs me, and it comes in my mind again and again, and in any meeting, in personal life and in official life, that we are a huge number of good people around the world. But a few bad boys in the world are ruining our life. Why we are not able to stop those bad boys from making the life of people horrible? Why we cannot make? This is the question that bothers me a lot. And in this moment of emotions that I'm right now, I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Jamila. Thanks. Let's move on. So what we wanted to do at first here is get to know a little about each of our panelists. I'd like to move on now to Sophie Beau and SOS Méditerranée. Sophie, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and share with us something personal so we can get to know you a bit.
Yes, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm really also very honored of that presence today with you. I am a co-founder of the organization SOS Méditerranée. I come from a humanitarian background, whereas my fellow co-founder, Klaus, is a sailor. And what happened is that we met in 2015, and we were both extremely shocked by what unfolded in the Mediterranean Sea at the doorstep of Europe. And when seeing these dozens of thousands of people dying without any rescue ship to assist them, despite the fact that international maritime law is extremely clear, there is a duty to assist for all captains, despite the tradition of the law of the sea, which has always been to assist anyone in distress. So we gathered and we tried our best, and we actually the simple question maybe, or the simple bet I want to share with you is when we met with Klaus, we thought, he as a sailor and me as a humanitarian, if we can save only one life as citizens, as sailor or humanitarian, it's our duty to do it. So that's why we started actually this rescue organization. We tried to find the means. Personally, I'm from background, I'm an anthropologist, so I come a little bit from far away. I worked in the field in Mali for some time. And here I decided actually to switch from reflection to action, because I felt compelled when school parents came to me, when people came to me in the village, to contribute also to the different actions people and villagers were trying to set up. So this is how I got there. And this is the main question which I just shared with you, that launched actually our project of SOS Méditerranée. And today we have rescued more than 40,403 people, exactly, because I think that everyone deserves to be named.
Sorry, Sophie, how many people have you rescued? What did you say?
40,403
40,000?
People out of the Mediterranean Sea, since the first rescue was in March 2016. So it has been now more than 8 years we are operating in the Mediterranean to save lives at sea.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for all your extraordinary work. Basma, let's turn to you. I've known you as a leader for a long time now and watched with great admiration as you've built the Community Sponsorship Hub, but we'd like to know a little about you. Tell us about you, who you are.
Yes, thank you so much, Sasha. I really appreciate being in this space. Happy World Refugee Day. I get so emotional, and I have been this whole week. Many tears drop down when really listening to refugees' stories. Sophie and Jamila, really nice to meet you. And Armin, thank you for sharing your stories and for all of the work you are doing. Sasha, I am actually sitting, since you asked where each one of us are, I am living in Jacksonville, Florida, and sitting in the main public library next to the City Hall, because I am being honored today receiving the proclamation from our mayor for World Refugee Day. So after this right away, I will step next door to receive that proclamation, and really, really happy to have our mayor really recognizing our work in the city. So I am Basma Alawi, a former refugee from Iraq. In 2010, I was forcibly displaced from my home due to persecution. At that time, I was an engineer, a daughter, a sister, and an active member of my community. I had to leave everything behind to protect my husband and my one-year-old daughter at that time. Starting over in Florida as a refugee was really challenging. Even though I had the privilege of knowing the language and having educational background, however, my visible identity as a Muslim Arab woman made me target to bigotry and xenophobia. This experience of being targeted fueled my passion for advocacy work. Within my first year in the US, I engaged in advocacy while also navigating my own career path. So I ended up teaching math and science in Florida for 7 years. Not until 2016, in the midst of rising national rhetoric against refugees and the start of a conversation around refugee ban, I left my full-time job as a teacher and started working as a full-time advocate to protect the refugee resettlement system in the United States. I dedicated myself to building local and state welcoming infrastructure for refugees and immigrants. Today, I am so privileged to serve as the Deputy Executive Director for a national organization that leads the implementation of the only private sponsorship program in the United States, the Welcome Corps. This organization is creating both a national and local infrastructure to welcome refugees, with just a group of 5 committed American citizens or permanent residents. And we can transform lives by welcoming refugees. It's really an exciting time, and it's really a full circle for me, as I started this work to protect the refugee program, but now I am part of expanding the domestic capacity to welcome refugees, empowering ordinary Americans to make a difference through the Welcome Corps. Really, really excited to be in this space with all of you and learn about your experiences in other worlds. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, Basma, so much for your work, and congratulations on the award. I know that you've won many awards, including 40 Under 40 Extraordinary People Awards and many others. So this just adds to the long list of very awesome things that you've been recognized with for your work. Congratulations. That's fantastic. You remind me also that I was on a call with the White House recently where they wanted to recognize World Refugee Day and the work that the US government has done to welcome refugees. And the Community Sponsorship Hub, the organization you lead, which we'll learn more about in a moment, works closely with the White House and with the State Department to build the program that you highlighted, which is creating opportunities for people living in the US to welcome refugees. So thank you for all your work. Congratulations on this new award. I'd like to now move into the work that each of you do. And Jamila, I'll come back to you and start. But I would like to say, as we turn back to you and to Afghanistan, that there now, under Taliban rule, as you know better than anybody, women are facing the worst oppression out of any place in the world. It's so extraordinary and unique that I feel, need a new term to understand that and to recognize it. It's been called apartheid. It's also been called at times genocide, but Raphael Lemkin actually coined the term genocide a number of during World War II. I think a new term needs to be coined to recognize the oppression of women in Afghanistan. Jamila, you stand in the face of that oppression, having experienced it yourself and creating organizations to support women. I would love to hear more about what you do there, why you were recognized for the Aurora Prize, and a little about the organizations that you've created and lead there.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we think like this crisis might be the end of the crisis in the world, but next day you witness another harsher history as coming up. Like after takeover of Taliban in 2021, I was feeling that this will be the worst situation in Afghanistan. So history might not witness this anymore. But after a few months, war on Ukraine happened, started, then many other wars in African countries, and now we see what's going on almost around 8 months in Palestine and Gaza. Unfortunately, yeah, in Afghanistan, Taliban are ruining the all development we had in Afghanistan for women. Unfortunately, every day Taliban are producing a new order to stop women from remain active member of the society. Just a while ago, before this meeting, I was meeting with Rina Amiri, a special envoy of US on women's rights, on the situation of women's rights in Afghanistan. And there will be third Doha meeting that Taliban is going to participate, and we were sharing our concern. And the sisters from inside Afghanistan, they were sharing their concern. It's highly depressing that Afghanistan is the only country in the world that women are denied their basic human rights to attend the school or to remain active in their positions and their jobs and to receive a dignified salary. And even just 2 days back, a new order was released by the Taliban leader that women should receive only 5,000 Afghani per month in whichever position they are working. 5,000 Afghani is around $80 per month. So whatever is Taliban are doing, that it's not like a systematic removal of women from the social and political life of the country. At the same time, like they are damaging the courage, the morality, the psyche of women of Afghanistan to never raise up again. They are damaging the psyche of Afghan women. A woman doctor that struggled in such a patriarchal society to become a doctor, and now she receives only 5,000 Afghani. And her husband will tell her that what is the need to go to continue your job? Your earning is only 5,000 Afghani. I earn much more than you. So it's better to sit at home and do nothing. And even a few days back, USA announced a grant for women employment inside their house.
Jamila, thanks for highlighting that. And, I remember talking to you last year about this when you highlighted that one of the horrific consequences of this extraordinary and unique oppression is that there are more people taking their lives, more girls and women who are so oppressed and so depressed that they don't feel they have any hope. Tell us what you have done to address this, what the organizations you've created and are part of have done and are doing.
Yeah, I was coming there, Sasha. Yeah, of course, yes. With all situation which is going on in Afghanistan, we, through our organization, are trying to reduce a little bit the chaotic situation which is going on in Afghanistan. We are providing community-based home schools where we provide psychosocial wellness and also educational activity for Afghan girls to remain active and also to continue their studies and remain healthier with all those depression and all those sophisticated environment in which they are living. Beside that, we are running a campaign to change every Afghan house to a school. We are working with this campaign, and this campaign with us, our male colleagues, our brothers are also supporting us. And we are trying to make every Afghan house has a school. If the Taliban are not allowing girls to go to school, we are trying to provide the school for them inside their house. There are many online educational activity, but unfortunately, most of poor families cannot afford them because they do not have internet or computer to educate their children. But through community-based schools, we are providing these services. And also we have 2,000 female teachers that they lost their jobs, and they have established homeschools inside their houses, and they are providing education for girls.
Thank you, Jamila. And Jamila, if I want to support your organization, how would I do that? I'd love to put something in the link. One of the things I love about Aurora Prize is that it highlights people just like you, supports you so that you can support others and continue to build what you're doing. How do I support you?
Yeah, the way Aurora supported us, you also can support us. Aurora through the funding and through the building, networking and recognition through Aurora has provided and opened the door for many other actors and many other donors and supporters to support our cause inside Afghanistan.
Good.
Although because of the current sanctions on Afghanistan, supporting through financial, it's very complicated. But through support of some other private sector, we found the ways to receive the support. But very small amount, we could do much things on the ground. And one thing about Aurora, I would like to share that through the funding support of Aurora, which I received after the award. So these activities are, I mentioned before, it's running on in Afghanistan, and hopefully we amplify these activities by attracting more supporters.
Thanks, Jamila. We'll try to get out to all the audience here something about how we can support you and other Afghans. I want to actually now turn, Basma, to you, because I'm reminded listening to Jamila that in August 2021, the U.S. evacuated about 85,000 Afghans onto U.S. soil in an unprecedented and unique moment in history when the U.S. withdrew and the Taliban took over. At that time, the U.S. did not have the capacity to integrate all those Afghans into communities around the country as quickly as needed. So they were languishing on 8 military bases across the country. Community Sponsorship Hub stepped forward and helped to build the Sponsor Circle program for Afghans, which Refuge Point was a part of. And then you moved from that to build other efforts that culminated in the Welcome Corps, which you highlighted. I'd love to hear a little about the Welcome Corps, but also I know that the Welcome Corps is dedicated to Afghans, among others. So maybe you want to put an Afghan slant on that, although the Welcome Corps welcomes people from around the world. Tell us about your work and what you do.
Yeah, happy. And Jamila, the work you are doing is so amazing. I have 2 daughters who their education for me is my priority. I really appreciate all of the work you are doing to invest in girls and women education in Afghanistan. It's really important, everything you are doing. And Sasha, I think
Basma, sorry, can I just stop you? Jamila, Basma just said something to you. I want to try to create a conversation here. It's a little hard when we're on Zoom, but feel free to respond to her.
Thank you very much, Basma. So if I tell you my story, that how education is important for me, so it will take another 1 hour, but we might talk later.
Okay, good. Sorry,
I would love
Basma,
to hear it. No worries. I would love to hear, Jamila. I think I'm actually, Sasha, this question really, really timing, because I was able actually, through my answer, I will explain actually how the Community Sponsorship Hub was born and how Welcome Corps was built out of the learning from all of the work that has been done and all of the crises that we have witnessed in the world. So to start from the Community Sponsorship Hub, the organization really bridges the gap between public and private sector investment, in really focusing in community sponsorship, making it special and unique in its approach. Our organization, recognized by the US Department of State, and CSH was selected to lead the consortium of other amazing 6 organizations, including IRC, Church World Service, HIAS, Welcome.us, IRIS, and IRAP in launching the Welcome Corps. Our team with decades of experiences is really dedicated to advancing community engagement and expanding the role of communities in welcoming refugees. I also want to uplift, there are over 32 private sponsor organizations nationwide supporting sponsors in their work. And I also want to uplift national and local partners like Refuge Point, who, because of all of the work you have been doing, is really, we were able to celebrate the numbers of sponsors we have already committed to welcome refugees through the Welcome Corps. So to go back a little bit in history, community-led refugee resettlement in the United States has deep roots. It's not a new thing, particularly with faith communities. In early 1900 to World War II, In the 1980 the Refugee Act standardized the process, improving services by reducing community involvement. However, the Syrian and Mediterranean crisis in 2015-2016 marked a renewed public interest in active refugee resettlement participation. And in that period, we saw the emergence of co-sponsorship programs where community groups worked alongside resettlement agencies. But our work at CSH is also inspired by the successful Canadian private sponsorship model, which began in the late 1970s and has welcomed over 400,000 people. So learning from this, we established the Community Sponsorship Catalyst Fund in that time to support organizations in designing and implementing community sponsorship programs. CSH was formally established in September of 2021, and I was so privileged to be one of the founding board members during that time. And since then, we have experienced rapid growth. We have been involved in initiatives such as the Sponsor Circle program, which you just mentioned, that supported Afghan evacuees through Operation Allies Welcome, as well as the Ukrainian humanitarian parolee through Uniting for Ukraine. And then when the situation in Afghanistan created the crisis there, an urgent need for refugee support, and CSH really adapted quickly to provide assistance. Similarly, the ongoing crisis in Ukraine has increased the number of humanitarian parolees, promoting us to create the U4U model for fiscal sponsorship and adapt our program to support Ukrainian refugees. And that model was expanded.
U4U is Uniting
the
for
United
Ukraine.
for Ukraine.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, which is the program to bring in Ukrainians, but with people here in the US sponsoring them.
Yes, and that model even expanded to really welcome Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelans through similar program. In January 19 of 2023, the Welcome Corps was launched by the Department of State. The new private sponsorship program represents all of the work and learning that we have seen from all of the program, involving community members directly in the resettlement process. Welcome Corps fosters integration and has positive impact on both welcomers and communities. And we are witnessing that from the refugees' stories and the sponsors themselves, who have been themselves, I'm sharing their testament, not mine. They always have been saying, we are privileged, we are learning more about our communities, and our communities coming together to welcome the refugees. So at CSH, our role as connector is really vital. We partner with businesses, higher education institutions, governments, and philanthropic organizations, really to ensure everyone find their place in supporting refugee resettlement. I can speak more and more about the program, but I think I want to add one more thing, that of course, we have the Welcome Corps, but also we are expanding it to Welcome Corps on campuses, to engage universities, to really welcome refugees who are students, but with pathway to citizenship and education, and Welcome Corps at work, which is really focuses on employees as well. So I can speak about this all day long, but I wanted to make sure you have the history before what's really led to this work.
Thank you, Basma. And there's so much to say there. Just like with Jamila, there is so much to say, but thank you for your extraordinary work. Just last night, I was at an event with an Afghan woman named Arizo and her husband, who were welcomed here by a group of Americans and others who supported them, and just seeing how they have integrated in their lives here and seeing the impact both on them and on the people who sponsored them. Americans in this area. I live in Somerville outside of Boston. My office right now is in Boston, so I'm coming to you from there. Seeing the impact of that, both how the Afghans who arrived here were welcomed, but the impact they've had on their communities and the people around them who have welcomed them, as you said, is really extraordinary. It also connects with, I think, a real underpinning tenet of the Aurora Prize, which is that everybody can be a humanitarian. And what the Welcome Corps is doing is allowing people to do that across the country in all 50 states. That's happening because people are stepping up and saying, this is me, these are my values, I want to welcome someone. So thank you so much. Now, Jamila, you highlighted the extraordinary and horrific circumstances of women and girls in Afghanistan. Basma, you highlighted the need to welcome people fleeing the worst violence around the world. Sophie, when I think about SOS Méditerranée and the work you're doing, it stands out for the way you very directly and immediately are saving lives of people who would otherwise drown or lose their lives. I've been a huge fan of your work for a long time because Refuge Point is actually active in Libya and across North Africa, identifying refugees for resettlement to EU and other countries so they don't have to risk their lives. But many people do get stuck in Libya in the most horrific detention centers and then try to leave to cross the Mediterranean. You are there for them. Tell us about your work.
Yes, thank you very much, and congratulations to my dear fellow members of the panel. And I'm really admirative of their way. Just I want to say a word about these inspired women. We have rescued also 15% of the people rescued were women. Which are really heroes, because on these very, very dangerous routes which they are taking, it's always more and more dangerous for women than for men. They risk sexual harassment and slavery on top of all other difficulties that all these people are facing. So it's always for me very inspiring to meet ladies with such a courage. As you just mentioned, Sasha, we are facing not only people drown at sea without being rescued if there are no civil NGOs to come and rescue them, but also people are facing such horrific conditions in Libya, which is really what they call, it's not my words, it's their words, the Libyan hell. The Libyan hell, which is a place where people are kept in captivity, extorted funds, they get slaves. There is a massive use of torture, of sexual harassment, and all of this is used for these people who have crossed through different roads and converged to Libya, because there is a massive failure of the state in Libya and very much flourishing traffics. Actually, people are forced to send money from their families to escape from this hell. While they have gone through that, then they are put on tiny boats that are absolutely unable to cross the sea. And as you probably know, there are about 30,000 people have been counted by the International Organization for Migrations, having perished at sea in the last 10 years. These are only the ones who have been counted, and many more shipwrecks happen without any survivor, any witness, so we don't even know about it. So it's actually a terrible toll, and it is absolutely not acceptable. So what we are doing is trying to do our share of trying to identify some boats in distress, but there is a massive failure of coordination in the area. This is the duty of states. The coastal states should actually coordinate rescue capacity, but they are absolutely not doing so, especially not Libyan coast guards, who are supposed now to take care of this area due to agreements that were made with European countries, and in particular Italy. So they are not doing so, and they are not rescuing people. If they do send boats, then they return these people fleeing from the Libyan hell, they return them in the same centers they have just escaped. So it's a vicious circle, and people are trying again and again to escape, and many of them are dying at sea. What we are doing is chartering a ship. We have professional sea rescuers on board, and we are partnering with the International Federation of the Red Cross, who is in charge of the medical action and the protection of people once they are on board. We try to care for them, of course. Just at the moment I'm speaking, actually, now we have 54 people that were rescued in the beginning of the week, which are getting disembarked in an Italian port. So we finish our mission while people are disembarked in a place of safety. And then other organizations, many more organizations, as you know, from the civil society, are taking care of these people afterwards, where we know that in Europe, they'll get still a very, very difficult journey. Especially in these times, as you know, the political environment in Europe is very hostile to migrants and refugees. So we really have a duty of care for these people, and this is what we are trying to do.
Sophie, can I just say something about that? We're seeing that, of course, across the world. Populism, a lurch politically to the right, and that comes along with xenophobia and anti-refugee rhetoric. But at the same time, there's something else that I see that's happening, that underneath that, you actually have people across faith and political divides who care about refugees. Basma is seeing this with the Community Sponsorship Hub, but you talked about people disembarking in Italy. I know that there's a huge movement in Italy to welcome refugees there. Italians, again, I imagine across faith and political divides, who have said, this is me, these are my values, I'm going to support them. Are you seeing that in Italy and other places as well, even though the governments are moving toward the right?
Absolutely. We're seeing that not only when people are disembarking, but there were also more initiatives such as SOS Méditerranée. There is a constellation, not many, it's not enough, of different search and rescue initiatives that were really purely civilian initiatives that were so shocked by the situation and this failure of states, and that got the means and the courage to charter ships and go at sea. It's a very difficult work because we are being really, really heavily harassed, and more and more. Our ships are detained, our staff is accused of criminal offenses, etc., of aiding illegal immigration, and all kinds of debates that are just insane when you look at the legal framework, which is an absolute duty to save lives at sea for anyone in distress. So there is no discussion. People are dying. We need to save them. But it's true that we have, on the one hand, a very, very hostile political environment, but we also have a civil society that is motivated and resisting a lot.
Yeah, Sophie, thank you for highlighting that. And it reminds me that you were also nominated for the Aurora Humanitarian Prize because you are risking your own life and standing up with extraordinary courage in the face of these threats, these legal threats and other threats to you and to what you stand for. Thank you for that. Basma, I see you nodding. I don't know if you wanted to say something about that. And Jamila, I see you closing your eyes in reflection, I think. And when I saw you doing that, Jamila, I thought, you're in Canada now. I wonder how you've been received there. You had to flee to Canada after fleeing 6 times in your life. So either of you, please feel free. We do have a few questions, but I want you to feel free to comment on what Sophie said or something that you've heard. Go ahead.
I think for me, it's just really sad while we are seeing the increase in numbers of people with forced displacement. We are also seeing more hate in more closing borders and closing policies that really eliminate people from moving. And I think that's, for me, really a struggle and a challenge, because when we as communities and humanitarians see more crises, we need more actions and more community members opening their homes. And I think I continue to struggle to see why these conflicts not creating more humanitarian actions and solutions. And I know, in the same time, these are why we all exist. And I hope actually through this dialogue, more people take action and more people really advocate for more solutions in terms of resettlement, movement, because as human beings, we are free to move. And we really need support from governments to really support this movement.
Thank you. Jamila, over to you. You're in Toronto, is that right?
Yeah, near to Toronto, it's Kitchener. Yeah, when Sophie was talking about safety of people by the boat for their rescue, I remembered my own last time when I was fleeing from Afghanistan. I had to cross savage water, and I have disability, and it was really difficult for me to go through that savage water. And my brother, like, he was holding me on his shoulders, and he was crossing that savage water. And I was like thinking, if I fall down or if my brother foot slip, so I will fall down in that dirty savage water, and my whole body will be under that dirty water. So that moment is just as a shock moment, as a nightmare. It comes again and again to me, like when you were talking. So I remember that moment. So yeah, every refugee who's crossing borders without having legal documents, so it's really challenging. They are losing their life, they are losing their dignity, they are losing their wealth, everything. It was also one of my personal experience. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Jamila. You know, there are so many people, obviously, who fled their homes, but so few relatively who want to speak about what they've gone through, because that's traumatizing and re-traumatizing. And the fact that you're able to do that, Jamila, on a regular basis, to speak about your own experiences and to share them with others so that you can inspire others, we are incredibly grateful for that. And everybody recognizes the courage that it takes to do that in an ongoing way. So thank you for sharing that experience. We have a few questions coming in. We have a few more minutes, but I did want to highlight that today on World Refugee Day, I would love for everybody to take one action in support of refugees. And one action that you can take right now is to support these extraordinary people who are on this panel and the organizations that they lead. So we want to highlight that and encourage everybody to take some action that centers your own sense of justice and need to support others right now. So I hope that you'll do that. One of the questions that's come in is, Jamila, to you, and I'd like you just to answer it really, really briefly, and it's a tough question, and maybe you can add some dimension of hope, but maybe just take a minute to answer. It says, when will the oppression of women in Afghanistan end? And I know that there's not a simple answer for that, but do you have anything to say about that?
Unfortunately, there will be no soon release from the oppression, because what I see that the climate of international politics and the climate of regional politics is in favor of support of Taliban. So unfortunately, it take longer. But I believe strongly to the Afghan women and to strength of Afghan women and to the courage of girls and women of Afghanistan. I believe that women of Afghanistan are just like mountains of Afghanistan. They will stand firm with all these challenges, and that day is not far away, and that we come up as a revolution. And I believe in revolution, it will come out. Not very soon, but until that time, we will focus on our empowerment, on our solidarity, on our sisterhood, on to remain active with our circles and humanity for supporting of each other.
Thank you, Jamila. Earlier this week, the Human Rights Council came together, the UN's Human Rights Council, to talk about the oppression of women and girls in Afghanistan and to encourage the international community to ensure that the Taliban does everything it should do to ensure the rights. It's just one dimension of things, but it's good to see that the UN is advocating with governments to stand up to the Taliban. In a minute or so, Basma, would you want to share something about how your work has influenced or inspired others?
I don't think that this is just my work. I think it's the work of the whole consortium, of the whole ecosystem that we have built through the Welcome Corps. We have over 87,000 Americans stepped into, committed to welcome refugees through the Welcome Corps, even though the program is a really a year and a half old. This is for me a really just so inspiring to see the numbers increasing every single day. This is really a statement that we are, as communities, capable of welcoming. We will make it happen. We will make it work. And for me, every day I meet sponsors and I hear their stories and how they are inspired, and how they are inspiring others to welcome refugees. It just gives me so much energy to continue this work. So I hope that we see through this dialogue and through all of the work that's been happening, and really the stories we are hearing from Afghanistan is just really step in to welcome Afghans. We have a really big momentum now to really mobilize Americans, allies, Afghan diaspora community to really hear what Jamila is sharing about people in Afghanistan and how women are suffering. And really Afghans outside Afghanistan who are still in limbo, not sure where to be. So I really want my call to action for the communities to take action, submit your application, start your sponsor groups, and welcome refugees from Afghanistan, from Afghans or from all over the world. I think it's a really, really important time for us to step in and show up in big ways.
Thank you, Basma. And we'll share information about that too, so people in the US can see how to take action. You said 87,000 people are doing so, but of course that doesn't even recognize all of their friends who see them doing that and are positively influenced because of that. Sophie, in a minute, can you share why you've inspired others or others that have taken action seeing SOS Méditerranée's work?
No, I agree also it's a very collective work, so let's not personalize too much. We have been able to do what we do because many supporters have come to support our activities, even financially, because otherwise we would not be able to have a ship. So it's very expensive, and it's 24,000 euro or almost dollars per day. So that money is coming from supporters all throughout Europe that believe that nobody deserves to die at sea. And also the support is coming from volunteers. We have about 1,000 volunteers in France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, who do a lot of sensitization, awareness sessions to the general public, to teenagers in schools. And it's super encouraging to see that youth is very sensitive to this topic and very reasonable. They are really asking the right questions. So I'm quite optimistic with them coming, even though the current environment is very depressing, I must say. But there are some people joining still at the moment, even if we don't speak anymore about this Mediterranean crisis. There are still new volunteers, still new people, supporters, donors. So that's encouraging to see that people don't want to accept injustice and care for others people's lives.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. We only have a couple of minutes, and so I wanted to share some closing thoughts. First, to say that in addition to the nearly 120 million or so people who are forcibly displaced, when people flee their home and country, they often don't return home for 20 years or even longer. This calls into question the need to support people now, because the World Food Program and other large aid agencies are losing funding. That means more and more people are going to risk their lives to try to find someplace safe. Aurora Prize is creating opportunities for people to do that, and this panel has showed some of the people that we can support. During the Aurora Prize award ceremony and events in April, Dr. Nubar Afai, a co-founder of the Aurora Prize, along with Dr. Eric Israelian, who was a founder of the UCLA Promise Institute for Human Rights and was and coordinated along with the Aurora Prize ceremony and events, said something that really stuck in my mind. I think it was Eric who said, right now in the world today, everybody can and should add the term humanitarian to their title. If you are a teacher, you could be a teacher and a humanitarian. If you are a social worker, you could be a social worker and a humanitarian. So I will leave you with that thought, that in the face of growing displacement today, with so many displaced and many more potentially displaced in the future, all of us need to find ways for us to be humanitarians and add that to our titles. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this World Refugee Day with the Aurora Prize and the Aurora Humanitarian Initiatives. Basma, Sophie, and Jamila, thank you so much for your extraordinary work, courage, innovation, and ability to step forward and lead the world in terms of what we all need to do, how we can all stand up morally for what's right and support people. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.